Hello, this is Carrie with Stampiffany, a great stampin' idea. Today I'm going to show you how to use a wet wipe and some re-inkers to have kind of a real beautiful, cool effect with some of your stamping. So we're going to start out with the re-inkers and this big acrylic block. Grab one or two sheets of some wet wipes, preferably ones without alcohol. These are just some plain label generic baby wipes that I've grabbed. And you can get by with one. I happen to grab two this time. I don't think it really matters. And you're just going to spread those on your block. Really, the block is just there to protect my table because the inkers will soak down in through the wet wipe and go to the bottom, and I just didn't want to get that on my mat. You could use any kind of plastic that you want to use. The stamp set we're using is the Dragonfly Dreams. We're going to be using the kind of watercolorish look stamp with this. And our re-inkers are going to go directly onto the wet wipe, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Listed in the lower left hand corner will also be each one of the colors that I decided to use. This is a great technique if you just want to play around with different color combinations and see which ones you like and just do different things with. And also this particular type technique also works better with more bold solid stamps. It won't work as well with your detail stamps. So as I put the inkers, you can see I'm just kind of dropping them randomly around the baby wipe and just letting them spread out. So essentially what we're kind of doing is making our own little custom ink pad here with the wipes. So once you have that the way you want, grab some paper, and I'm just going to gently pick up the color from the wet wipe. You can see kind of how blotchy it is right there, but that's actually what we want. It kind of has all this marbly kind of look. I just love it. I think it looks really cool. And another thing is every time that you stamp it, you're going to get a slightly different look, and you can stamp several of these without having to re-ink the wet wipe. I think I did 4, but I don't really know the limit because I didn't keep stamping until it was all the way done, but I do know that you can do quite a few. So I'm just going to keep stamping. I just did 4 of these. You can do as many as you like, and like I said, play around with different bold stamps. See what kind of different effects and what kind of different color combinations that you like. I even have a Pinterest board just for color combinations that I like to try out. So once you have that completely done, kind of put that off to the side. And with this particular stamp, it is a 2-step stamp. So we're going to stamp the detail of the dragonfly wings over the top. And I'm just going to use basic black archival ink for this. It doesn't take long for this stuff to dry. It doesn't take any longer than normal when you stamp with it, so you don't have to worry about it being wet for a long period of time. So I'm just going to take this on my ink pad, and I'm just going to do the same thing to all 4 of those sheets of cardstock. I'm just going to stamp them all with that detail stamp. Here's the last one, and you can still see kind of the marbling from the ink through the wings. I think it gives it a really pretty effect. Once that's done, we have a matching framelit that you can use to die cut those out. So I'm just going to run those through my Big Shot and cut all of those out to use on a card. So here's my dragonfly. It's all ready to go. And now we're going to start assembling the rest of the card. So the pieces that I'm using is a 4 1/4 by 11 basic black, Tempting Turquoise, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and a sheet or a scrap of some white vellum cardstock. And the turquoise in this scene is a little bit large, and I end up cutting it down. And then this is the scrap. I'm just showing that because I actually used my trimmer to cut off the white and use for my grading. I'm using this swirly embossing background to emboss the Tempting Turquoise, and we're going to be using this swirly die set to die cut the vellum, kind of make it look like little waves in the water is kind of what we're going for here. So we're going to get our Big Shot out, and with the swirlies I do recommend that you use your precision plate. I feel that it cuts it out a lot better. I had tried it without that and just my magnetic plate, and it did not work out as well. So make sure you use your precision plate for that. Now for your embossing folder, we're just going to need the Big Shot platform without the adapter, and then 2 cutting plates, and you'll want to put your paper in your embossing folder and then put your cutting plate at the top, and always make sure you have the seam at the top go through first. If you don't, you very well could break your embossing folder. I have unfortunately done that before. So make sure you always send the seam through first. Now that that is done, we are ready to start putting together our card. Now with the embossing, you can either go with the bumps facing upward like they are here. You can see it's kind of ridgy, or you can do it with them going down. I had decided that I was going to make them face downward, but first, before we do that, as you can see, I've got that little strip of white cardstock. We're going to go ahead and stamp our greeting, and I really liked the greetings that were in this set. I thought they were great. And we're going to end up stamping the one that says "To a Wonderful Friend." And I just count myself lucky to have lots of wonderful friends, so I need cards to friends a lot. So this came in handy to stamp one of those. So I'm just putting my stamp away and grabbing the greeting. I have a tendency to kind of clean up as I go. So sometimes it seems like things take a long time, but then there's less cleanup at the end, so I kind of like that. So we're just going to take the basic black cardstock that I used to stamp the detail on the Dragonfly, and we're going to use that same ink pad to stamp onto our white scrap here. I also really like the font on this one, a nice scripty font. And with the photopolymer, it does make it easy to see through the block and the stamp and make sure that I get it correct on my cardstock. I'm just going to take some linen thread here. I'm just going to tie that around. You could use anything you want around here. You could use some turquoise baker's twine if you want that you've colored with your marker. You could take our white baker's twine and just color it with one of our markers if you want to, and have pretty much any color baker's twine that you want to have. That's the great thing about using the markers and the reinkers. You can use them to color ribbon, twine, just all different kinds of things. So I just did a double knot here, and that's so it doesn't shift on me while I'm trying to get the bow tied. And I could have just left this as a knot, and you could do that on your card if you like. But I decided that I was going to go ahead and do a bow. And just as a side note, I'm sorry about the crazy nails. My cousin and I just had some fun the other day doing a manicure, and I just wanted something bright and happy, and so that's what I chose. So anyway, now I've got the bow done. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the ends because I don't need them quite so long. And once those are trimmed, I'm ready to put that on the cardstock. It's about here that I realize that my Tempting Turquoise is not cut down correctly. So here I am going, oh, oopsie doodles, I need to cut that down. So I'm going to get my paper trimmer out and trim that down to 4 inches like it should have been to begin with. It's nice to have a trimmer that's easy to get in and out. And once that's trimmed down, it makes it a lot easier to mount it. Imagine that. So now that I've sized that up, we can truly begin to assemble this cute little card. I'm just going to use one of my favorite adhesives, which is the Fast Fuse. And like I said before, I'm actually doing it with the bumpy side or the embossed side down, so the debossed side is actually going to be up on this card. And that's just personal preference. You could do whatever you want to do. It's, you know, whatever you think makes the card look best. So I just did it this way. But it's nice to know you have that option. You don't always have to do it with the bumpy side up. So now that that's on, it's time to put our greeting. And it is a little bit longer than the card, so I'm just going to take my scissors here and trim those off the edges. I could have cut that down to begin with, now that I think of it, but I didn't. Sometimes I just have a scrap and I just cut it down and worry about it later like I did now. I did struggle a little bit, like I couldn't get that little end of the ribbon out of the way, and I was afraid if I cut it the bow would come unraveled, so I probably should have maybe scooted that bow over just a little bit to make it easier, but you know, it all worked out in the end and it's okay. It's not a deal breaker, as I like to say, so just move that over a little bit and get that trimmed off so it fits. Now I could have just made it go all the way across to the black. It's really kind of up to you what you would prefer. I just wanted it to just be on the Tempting Turquoise and not go to both ends. So now, since it's an embossed piece of cardstock, having some good strong glue is good because it's not going to hit all the way across. Any place that is debossed won't have tape on it. So you want to make sure that you go all the way across on your little... Don't be stingy on the tape, I guess, is what I'm saying, because that way it hits a lot more surface area, so it'll stick to the front of the card. Now once that's on there, we can start putting the vellum. Now I had tried a different couple things with the vellum. You could have done where you put a full sheet of the stick it behind it. The only problem with that is anywhere that the glue does not stick to the cardstock is going to be a different shade than the stuff that does stick to the cardstock. And liquid glue, I'll show you an example later, that didn't work at all. And so what I opted to do was just do some glue dots in strategic places where I knew that the dragonfly was going to cover up the glue dots. So I kind of was trying, you see me measuring here, kind of gauging, okay, where's his wings going to be, where's his body, and then I tried to line it all up. So when I put the dimensionals on the dragonfly and then put him on the card, the glue dots are all hidden. Vellum is one of those tricky things when you're using adhesive. If it was going to be completely flat onto the front of the cardstock, using adhesive all over the back of those swirls would have been just fine. But that embossing is which kind of threw a wrench in that and made that kind of throw that option out because it wouldn't have worked. So if you have a better idea, feel free to throw that in the comment section. We're always looking for good ways to use vellum even better. I love vellum. I think it's gorgeous. So now that the dragonfly is on there with some dimensionals, I just felt it needed a little more yellow and some shimmer. So the first thing I did was add some Wink of Stella. I mean, come on, people, let's be serious. The dragonfly wings need some shimmer. I mean, it goes without saying, right? So grab your Wink of Stella and add some wings there, and they give it a really pretty shimmer. I just love that. It's really hard to see on the camera, but in real life it's just gorgeous. Reflects the light really nicely. So I've got some enamel dots here, and these are crushed curry. They come in our Regals enamel dots. And I'm just going to add a few on there. And whenever you're adding accents like this, odd numbers are always the best way to go. Naturally, the human brain and the eyes want to group things, and when they're in odd numbers, it just seems to be more pleasing. So here's the card I made when I was trying to see if the liquid glue would work, and you can see those little patches of the liquid glue. I just didn't think worked very well at all. And here's a couple other examples of the same layout. Here's one with the crushed curry instead of vellum for swirls. This one I did a similar baby wipe technique just on white cardstock, and I'll show you in a second how I did that. And then the last one is pretty much the same card with the swirls, but now the bumpies are out instead of, so it's embossed showing instead of the debossed showing. And again, that's just personal preference, whatever you'd like to do. I just opted for the debossed look. Give it a try. Try different ways and see what you like. This was kind of my process on these cards, just trying to come up with a layout that I liked. So let me show you how I did that swirl that kind of has multicolor, the white and the yellow. So I took the same block and I put some crushed curry inker on there, and then what I did was I sprayed it with some water. It's always a good idea to move everything else out of the way. I tend to be a little bit sloppy when I spray water. I get it everywhere. So I sprayed some water, or you can even use the Stampin' Mist, and then I took my baby wipe and just kind of gently patted it all around the block, and then I just put my paper right over the top of that. So it's going to pick up a bunch of the splotchy little yellow bubbles or whatever's on there, and I just moved it around the block. And then what you can do is, if you want even more color, is take that same baby wipe and just gently swirl it over your Whisper white cardstock. And you can see the blotches still stay there and they're darker, but now you have like a solid background. And again, that's something you can play with and just kind of see what look you like the best. I hope you like this card layout. I absolutely love this bundle, and it'll be one I do in an upcoming stamp camp. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a fantastic day.